Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty on all charges in his trial for shooting 3 men, 2 of whom died during protests in Kenosha, Wisconsin in 2020. The protest started after a white police officer shot and injured Jacob Blake, a black man. While carrying a firearm, Rittenhouse joined others to protect businesses during the protests. The shootings took place on the 3rd night of the protests. Rittenhouse faced 6 charges, including homicide, but 1 charge related to weapons was dropped during the trial. The jury took over 3 days to reach their decision. The trial had some extraordinary moments, including Judge Bruce Schroeder making decisions about describing the victims and responding to the defense team's suggestions about Apple's technology in the courtroom. The judge also reprimanded the prosecution for questioning Rittenhouse's post-arrest silence, which was not allowed. During the trial, Rittenhouse defended his actions, saying he was trying to protect people and carrying a rifle for self-defense. While Wisconsin allows open carry of firearms, minors are generally not allowed to carry weapons in public. Judge Schroeder, known for emphasizing civic duty, had an unconventional jury selection process using trivia questions similar to a game show. In the end, Rittenhouse was acquitted of all charges, and the verdict was reached on November the 19th after a trial that received significant attention and controversy. Judge Bruce Schroeder expressed dissatisfaction with prosecutor Mark Binger's questioning of the defendant who had chosen to take the stand. The judge believed Binger was addressing issues ruled inadmissible during the trial. Binger argued that Rittenhouse's response had opened the door to such questioning, but the judge disagreed, stating that he had left the door open for himself, not the prosecutor. The judge was particularly surprised when Binger began commenting on Rittenhouse's post-arrest silence, which, according to the judge, goes against basic laws established in the country for decades. Alex Jones. Conspiracy theorist Alex Jones clashed with an attorney representing the families of Sandy Hook victims in Connecticut. The families are suing Jones for spreading lies about the 2012 Sandy Hook elementary school shooting, which resulted in the tragic death of 26 people. During the trial, attorney Christopher Matte questioned Jones about his false claim that the shooting was a hoax, which visibly angered Jones, leading him to attack Matte. Jones accused the attorney of being dishonest and engaging in ambulance chasing, and he went on a rant about liberals. Judge Barbara Bellis expressed frustration with Jones's outbursts and warned him to follow court rules and respect the legal process. She reminded him that he was in a court of law and must follow her instructions. Bellis instructed both parties' counsels to behave appropriately and cautioned that any further violation of court rules would lead to a contempt hearing, which she hoped to avoid. This courtroom exchange occurred after a day of testimony from Jones, who had not previously appeared in the defamation trial in Connecticut. The trial comes after a Texas jury awarded nearly $50 million to 2 parents in a separate lawsuit against Jones and his company, Free Speech Systems. Jones had falsely claimed to his audience that the Sandy Hook shooting was staged, but later acknowledged the incident's occurrence after facing legal action. In a sworn deposition in 2019, he attributed his false comments to a form of psychosis. Michael Barrassone. In August 2019, Barrassone was accused of shooting his tenant, Lauren Kanarek, twice on his upscale farm in Long Valley. He also allegedly shot her fiancé, Robert Goodwin, but missed. The jury concluded that Barrassone was not guilty of attempted murder because of insanity, believing that he was suffering from a mental defect at the time of the crime and did not understand the wrongfulness of his actions. During the trial, experts testified about Barrassone's mental health, stating that he was battling delusional thoughts that made him paranoid and fearful for his life, leading to the shooting. The defense argued that he was legally insane during the incident. Kanarek, who testified tearfully during the trial, suffered severe injuries from the shooting and required medical intervention to repair damage to her left lung. Following Barrassone's acquittal because of insanity, he was sent to the Ankline Forensic Center in Trenton for several months. Subsequently, he was transferred to Greystone Park Psychiatric Hospital in Morris Plains, where he continued to receive treatment. One of Barrassone's attorneys argued that disclosing his mental health information in future hearings would violate his rights under the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, a federal law that protects people's health information. The attorney stated that Barrassone's acquittal should prevent further disclosing his medical history. However, the judge was surprised by this argument, pointing out there was no objection when Barrassone's psychiatric information was broadcast to a wide audience during the trial. Barrassone, a renowned dressage rider turned coach, attracted significant media attention, including CBS's 48 Hours coverage and live-stream trial by the Law and Crime Network. Scott Peterson. Scott Peterson, convicted of killing his pregnant wife Lacey Peterson and their unborn baby, has been resentenced to life in prison without possible parole for her death in 2002. The judge also sentenced him to 15 years to life in prison for the death of the unborn baby Connor. Both sentences will run concurrently. The California Supreme Court had reversed Peterson's death sentence in 2020 due to errors in the jury selection process. Before his resentencing, Laci Peterson's mother, sister, and brother addressed the court, expressing their grief and pain over the loss of Laci and Connor. Her mother, Sharon Rocher, described the last time she saw and spoke to her daughter and expressed her disappointment in Peterson's lack of remorse. Throughout the proceedings, the family demanded that Peterson admit to killing his wife and unborn child. Despite the resentencing, Peterson continued to maintain his innocence. In addition to the resentencing, Peterson's case had another legal issue. The California Supreme Court ordered a re-examination of his murder convictions due to a juror's failure to disclose involvements in other legal proceedings. Peterson's defense team argued that the juror's actions were prejudicial and impacted the trial. Despite the resentencing, Scott Peterson maintains his innocence, and his appeals have focused on various aspects in the trial. California's Governor Gavin Newsom issued a moratorium on the death penalty in 2019, which remains in effect during his tenure, and the state has not executed an inmate since 2006. Daniel Villegas. Daniel Villegas' story is a very sad example of being wrongly put in prison and the terrible results of forced confessions. He was only 16 when he was arrested for a double murder in El Paso, Texas, even though he didn't do it. The police in El Paso forced him to sign a false confession by threatening him with violence and the death penalty. In the first trial, the jury couldn't decide, but in the second trial, he was found guilty and given a life sentence based on the false confession. He spent 18 years in prison before the verdict was finally overturned, and he got out on bail. This gave him a chance to get married and start a family. During the third trial, he was very worried as he waited to find out if the jury would say he was innocent or if he'd have to stay in prison forever. Luckily, the jury found him not guilty and he was set free. However, because of what he went through, he decided to sue the city of El Paso. In 2007, a man named John Mimbella, who had married Villegas' former sister-in-law and adopted his 3 nieces, believed in his innocence and wanted to help him. He heard about Villegas' case when he visited his in-laws and felt it was important to support him in his fight for justice. Daniel Villegas' story shows how essential it is to protect the rights of those accused of crimes and make sure the justice system is fair and truthful. Derek Chauvin. Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin has been sentenced to 245 months in federal prison for violating George Floyd's civil rights. Senior U.S. District Court Judge Paul Magnuson initially sentenced Chauvin to 252 months, but reducted 7 months for time already served. U.S. attorneys requested that Chauvin's sentence run concurrently with his state sentence of 22.5 years. Chauvin had pleaded guilty to federal charges of depriving Floyd of his civil rights in December as part of an agreement with prosecutors. Assistant Attorney General Tristan Clark stated that the sentence sends a message that the Justice Department is prepared to prosecute law enforcement officers who use deadly force unjustifiably. While prison time could not undo the tragic consequences of Chauvin's actions, it's hoped that the sentence provides some justice for the impacted families and communities. During the hearing, Chauvin briefly addressed George Floyd's children, wishing them the best. However, he did not offer an apology during his statement. Philanese Floyd, George Floyd's brother, attended the hearing and asked for the maximum sentence, seeking closure and wanting to understand why. In June 2021, Chauvin was sentenced on state charges, including second-degree unintentional murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter for the killing of George Floyd in May 2020. The video of the incident, showing Chauvin kneeling on Floyd's neck and back while he was handcuffed and pleading for breath, ignited national outrage over police brutality and sparked discussions about racial justice in America. Which one of these disturbed you the most? Let us know in the comments section. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Thanks for watching.